Hello, Cosmic Soul family. Ella Ivy here with livzenastrology. Thank you so much for being here on this live for this cosmic transmission of Aquarius and the full moon in Aquarius happening August 9th, 2025. And so today we're going to be looking at the chart. We're going to be looking at some of the aspects for this full moon exploration as we are all stepping into what the word that just keeps coming up, over and over again, and it's a buzzword now for the collective, is authenticity. That seems to be the name of the game, and the frequency that we're all moving towards with this higher mind Aquarius energy that's activating us in Pluto. It's transforming who we are, what we create, how we be, how we think. This retrograde Mercury is making us rethink and redo major aspects of our lives. The planets are really inviting us to have a new experience of this reality. So, what does that look like? What does that feel like? We're going to be exploring that today. Also, I'm going to be pulling from, because if you follow this channel, I love learning again that the North Node in Pisces is very much the spiritual and the artistic aspect. And that's what divination cards or oracle cards afford. From my experience, is just also a bit of a different periphery on how these energies can be influencing us. So I'm going to be pulling a card from here. I'm also going to be pulling a card from the chakra deck that I have that are just one word mantras or sentences that can also enhance and give us more of a reflection on how to work with this full moon energy, because it is, full moons historically are about things that need to be released, things that need to be revealed. If you look at in the sky, as our ancestors were, having these prognoses of how these energies work, they start paying attention to the patterns. And the patterns that we can see with full moons it highlights things that we normally don't know or we are not aware of. It's illuminating things within us that need to be seen and therefore alchemized and let go of, or transmuted, transformed, and to become something else, right? The next higher octave of who we are. And so when you look through the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius is about innovation. It's about the future. It rules groups, organizations, the 11th house. If you study Western astrology, it rules 11th house matters. So these particular energies are going to be focused, again, collectively. We're looking at 11th house matters, but individually, this access point of the full moon, because full moons is always going to be opposite the sun, right? So you look at where the sun is transiting, and it's transiting through Leo. So it's going to be opposing this Aquarius full moon energy. And you want to look to see individually where that's happening in your own chart, because that's also going to be what I call the layering effect. It's going to layer the collective energies of what we can all be experiencing, and then we're going to layer it into how that's aspecting and transiting for your particular chart placement. So again, if you want to reach out to Lives in Astrology, I'd love to be able to give you, first of all, a free PDF of your birth chart. And if you want to go deeper, we can always schedule a chart session with that. So check out the channel. Again, we come from the premise that all is self, that nothing that's happening outside of us is not something that's happening deeply internally to us, by us, for us through our energies where we're vibrating. The planets are can be found within. The cosmology of what we are seeing outside of us is actually a projection of what's happening inside of us. I think of like astrophysiology. And so it comes from a little bit of that metaphysical and all-inclusive perspective, because the language of astrology is very neutral, and it tends to be just describing the energies as not either being good or bad or right or wrong. It's just varying degrees of polarity that are natural in this realm, that are part of this game, this process, however you see this reality outside of you, whatever you're calling it. So it's just again a reflection point, a language to describe the energy in hopefully a neutral way, and to really just fold you back into oneness, right? Because on a certain dimensional level, we are all part of the system. Whether you come from a quantum perspective and they call it the quantum field of energy, whether you come from a more religious perspective and they call it God or the divine creator or the divine intelligence or source energy, There's lots of different languages that describe this particular field of which we are all a part of, and which we can all consciously tap into at any given time, especially with practice, right? Saturn is teaching us discipline on how to connect to these frequencies within us, Aries, because it's an inside out expression of these currents. And so that's the perception and the perspective that lives in astrology comes from. So I hope this empowers you, this ignites you in a way to know that you are part of a bigger system at play happening right now, and that your vision, your voice, who you are matters. Literally, it can come into form, and it will influence all of us by the decisions you make today. And so this invitation, for what I'm finding for this full moon, is, especially because the way it's aspecting the other planets, Jupiter in particular, also Venus. I'm also looking at the nodes of the moon during this transmission. I'm also looking at this beautiful trine energy that we're having in air, and it's about the mind. It's about communication, right? So there's a lot of supportive energies around this full moon, helping us step into our authentic natures, our authentic selves. But it requires us having to face some things, possibly from the past, Cancer, familiar energies that we learned in family, right? Family dynamics, governing systems, not only our individual families, but the family of nations, right? Who you consider your family of nation. So right now I'm in the United States, and I consider myself the family of nation, that those of us who live in these united states, right? This experiment of uniting the states of consciousness into this one collective field. And then we're working out these frequencies, for my personal opinion, and just again using the language of astrology in a very neutral way to help us navigate some of these sort of dissonant and opposing forces that are, again, all happening within you. The need to belong and to connect to something bigger than yourself, to community. Again, Aquarius, this is also Libra, the wanting to connect and to relate to the other. But in Aries, this opposition energy is showing that the other is also you, an aspect of you. So whether you're having an agreeable or disagreeable relationship with the other is really a reflection of what's going on internally within you. So again, this is a great sort of this trine energy, especially with Mercury and especially with Pluto, helping us transform how we see ourselves by seeing how we transform how we see the other. Hopefully having less judgment, Libra, having more balance. And then again, trining this Uranus energy with Gemini, which is about, wow, I can see things in a new way. Gemini is the mind, how we think, how we communicate. And Uranus is like, aha, unexpected moments, flashes of insight, flashes of deep knowing and remembrance. So this is supporting this energy of this full moon to really see yourself and the other in a new way. And perhaps where we have been trained or taught early education, Gemini, where to give our power away, how to harness our focus to things that perhaps we don't necessarily want to create, that we were just trained to create, or it was just familiar energy, right? It's what our ancestors learned to create. So we learn from them. This is Jupiter in Cancer. And so how can we resolve this or evolve through this? Because evolution is part of the process. It's a process, South Node Virgo, happening anyway. And Mars just had this beautiful ingress from being in Virgo, which is about systems, purifications, really getting into self. It rules the Hermit card in the Tarot, which is about going inward and really doing the inner cleansing, the inner purification, which is very alchemic too, is part of the process of transformation. Is alchemy is there has to be a purification aspect to this. And so I would invite you to go check out the aspects of alchemy itself. I believe there's 7 stages of it, and then, correspond the stages of alchemy for like the physical, chemical aspects and how it's actually being internalized and what's happening internally. There's a correspondence there. So we just went through the alchemy Mars energy of Virgo, which was about that purification, cleaning up the energy, cleaning up ourselves. Perhaps a lot of us decided to do fasts or go on some sort of regiment, healthcare regiment. And now, as it's ingressing into Libra, it's about balancing out our now purified self, and how can we relate more better our highest version selves with the other, right? Within relationships, because Libra is all about relationships. It also rules the justice system. It rules balance, fairness, equity, right, within relationship. And so while Mars was in Virgo, was showing us where we were out of balance within our own systems, because Virgo rules health and systems, possibly even mental systems, or again, physical imbalances that we had to really deconstruct, and with Mars take action towards making us better, rectification of these energies. And now, as Mars is ingressing into Libra, which historically astrologers say that Mars doesn't necessarily like to be in Libra, because Mars just likes to do its own thing. It just likes to take action, its initiation, and it likes to just do work with what feels good to you. But in Libra, it's about, well, you have to take action, but you also have to take in account the other and be responsible for your actions and how it will affect the other, right? Libra. So Mars sometimes has to learn to compromise, which is not really used to doing, because again, it's just more of a warrior energy. It's just like to take action because it's just been initiated to take action. It's been told to do something, it's going to do it. But now we're having to stop, drop, and roll, right? Stop what we're thinking or doing before you take action, drop into your heart, roll into the next breath and say, okay, I'm going to take this action, but how is that going to affect the other? And so Mars in Libra is going to be requiring that of us, right? It's still going into a cardinal sign, which cardinal is beginning, it's taking action, it's starting a new project, but it's probably starting something that, again, in relationships, in groups, in group dynamics. Where can you take your personal gifts, power, Leo, and how can you be of service and give to the other? And are your values similar? Who are you attracting into your field, into your community groups, into your relationships? And again, it's an invitation to see where you have agreeable aspects with some and disagreeable aspects with others. And this full moon, it's going to be highlighting really where we have given our power away, Aquarius, Pluto, and not been our authentic selves shining in the light in Leo, because we were so worried about what the other thought of us, or we wanted to be liked or accepted within communities and groups, and because that was the need of safety, security, right? Jupiter and Cancer, our safety depended on whether or not the community and the groups accepted us, accepted who we are. And so we fell in line a lot with perhaps the collective values, because that's what was expected of us. Again, early education, Gemini. And so Uranus is revealing, wow, we're in an evolutionary state where perhaps at that moment in time and space where we were, it was okay to be that way, right? But things are shifting. Uranus and Gemini is bringing awareness to the mind, like, wow, right now, the evolutionary consciousness of the group collective is now asking you to step into your authenticity and your own unique expression. Because when you can do that, from what I'm sensing, it gives permission to the other to do that. And then we're all tapping into our own individuated creative genius, Leo, right? Sun and Leo, and then we're sharing that with the other. And again, this is Mars in Libra. We're sharing our authentic selves in relation to the other to invite in their highest expression, because we are coming from our highest expression, passion, love. And again, I think of also Venus, which is also ingressing into Cancer. So Cancer is also about that supreme nurturing, right? I really value how I nurture myself. And the more I can learn to nurture myself and fill my cup every day with that which makes me feel good, which is authentic, right? Because you can be your more authentic self when you feel good in your body, when you're thinking thoughts that harmonize rather than illicit division, right? So this is this axis point, this conversation that's being invited in, and the full moon's illuminating where have you been out of balance? Where have you been outsourcing your power? And again, no blame game. It's just perhaps that's what we were taught to do. And now this beautiful air trine that's happening is like, no, you can actually, Mars, take action in your relationships from your authentic self. Uranus, your own unique expression in Gemini, the way you think will be igniting the other. And this trine in Pluto with Aquarius, it will transform who you commune with, your community groups, organizations, big structures that represent humanity, like healthcare, like food, like shelter, right? These are all things that are very Cancerian, and Jupiter's highlighting, look, there's a new way to do things, but you've got to get more clear about what it is you value, what do you want to experience, and how can you show up your authentic self, even if you've never really met your authentic self yet. Because again, we were so layered. I think of just like, a film that over time and space that comes over you, and you've got to shed that skin, that, like a snake, right? You got to shed that skin so you can become the next version of yourself. So there's this snake shedding skin energy. It's a 9-year too, and it's the year of the wood snake in Chinese astrology. So I always like to look at the layering effect of these symbologies or cosmologies, because they're always, again, telling a bigger story. And again, because we come from unity, it's telling the bigger story of how we are all connected, but how these storylines are playing out. And the only way really to know unity is to understand division. Because that's where we are in this polarized dimension. You can't know one without the other, right? If you're always constantly enjoy bliss, how do you know you're in bliss unless you understand suffering? And again, we're transcending out of these and getting into more of the middle path, where you can transcend all of these polarizing experiences and just really get into that oneness state where you're all is self. It's all you. So it won't be so dramatic when these polarizing energies show up, because you realize, oh, this is happening for me. I'm seeing the opposing energies within me, and I'm learning how to relate better, first of all, to myself. I'm learning to have more love and compassion and nurturance for self, less judgment, more collaboration and connection with understanding that all the parts of my body are working together. So I'm thinking of too, like the heart is located in one part, but and the liver is located in another. But we need both of these systems to operate this whole. And so the illusion was the systems were separate, right? The races were separate, the longitude, latitude points, the countries were separate, and we've used this separation as a form of categorization. Virgo, right? We needed to learn how to categorize, because if we all come from this unity consciousness, then how do you know to individuate? What stone is what? I've got two stones, but how do you know how to individuate? Right? It's through categorization, which is very much Saturn or South Node in Virgo. But now we're moving towards learning Pisces, which is that oneness, that yes, you may have different categories of stones or crystals, but they're both crystals, all comes from the same field, right? So we're learning to rectify again these opposing polarizing energies within us, understanding it's still all one part of the same system. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share from this perspective. We're going to look at the energy. We're going to look at the chart itself and take a look at some of these configurations. So you can see here, I have this exact of this full moon on August 9th, 2025 at 3:55 a.m., 3 minutes. This is Eastern Standard Time, and I have Aries on the ascendant, which I like to do just to keep it cohesive. And again, I'm looking too at this exact full moon, what is illuminating. And we can see it's ruled by the moon will be, or the sun rather, is in Leo, and it's going to be highlighting the fifth house. Fifth house matters creativity, heart of the child, where you want to be seen. Very much look at the aspects and characteristics of Leo. And I have a free ebook, by the way, that I have created so that I can learn these particular definitions of these signs and planetary energies. And I'd love to share that with you. So again, you can reach out to me, Lives on Astrology, and I'll send that out. It's a gift to anybody that's on the channel that again is learning to understand or understand these energies just a little bit better, with a little more cohesiveness. But you have to understand the language and how to speak it. So I can help with that. So anyway, here's these opposing energies, and there's the moon there in Aquarius, 11th house. And what was also highlighted to me was again this opposing energy, because Mars just ingressed into Libra at 1 degrees 28 minutes, and you can see it's opposing Saturn and Neptune, which are both retrograde at 1 degrees in Aries. And then another thing that was highlighted for me too as well, which I thought was fascinating, was this Black Moon Lilith energy in Libra. And you will also want to study the archetype of Black Moon Lilith, the parts of us, the divine dark feminine, meaning dark is just the unseen aspects, not like the inverted dark, which is the evil, which is just a program, because we have dark and light matter, and dark matter is feminine, light matter, in this understanding, is masculine. So it's more of a frequency and less of a gender. in terms of how we're discussing this energy. So we've got the dark matter of Black Moon Lilith, who in her archetypical energy, before there was Adam and Eve, there was Adam and Lilith. And Lilith was the divine feminine that would not be dominated by Adam, right? Especially sexually, because I guess archetypically he wanted to put her in a certain position and she didn't want to be dominated in that way. So she left the garden. And supposedly in the story, Adam was very upset and called out to God. And so that's when they tried to get, Lilith back into the garden, and she wouldn't come back because she wouldn't be dominated. She wouldn't be subservient to Adam. She was to be his equal or not to be there at all. So that they ended up demonizing Black Moon Lilith and creating all these storylines saying she was a witch and ate children, did all kinds of stuff. So anyway, there's again just looking at the story of Black Moon Lilith and how it shows up in different signs, and then it's showing up in Libra, which is all about justice, relationship, balance, harmony, how we relate to the other, and it's opposing Chiron. And the story of the Chiron is the wounds of the child, right? The wounded healer. It's where our wounds become our medicine. And through the archetype energy of Aries, it's about our individuated I am self. The parts of us that feel worthy to be seen. It's the I am, whatever the I am is. And where maybe perhaps the wound is you not didn't get to express your full I am presence of who you really were, right? That you were indoctrinated and trained, third house, to be what society and what you were taught to be was based on what the culture and the big businesses and the big organizations needed, not what you individually came to bring to the table. So this is what's being, I would say, the opportunity, because the trine happening that I was talking about with this grand water trine is happening with Mars in Libra, trining Pluto, our power, our transformation planet, in Aquarius, which is our groups, our inner knowing, technology, our hopes, dreams, and wishes, our aspirations, and it's trining this Aquarius in Gemini in the third house, which Aquarius wants, or Uranus rather, which rules Aquarius, wants change. Again, rules technology, innovation, and in Gemini, it's about the mind, how we communicate, how we think. And so again, there's this resolution, this possibility to resolve these opposing energies within us with service to self, service to others, how we can really, heal and see where the wounds and where we didn't get to really be in our I am. I'm thinking of like, say, for example, the stories coming in for the child that always wanted to be a musician, born in a family of doctors, right? So, the expectation, I would say, even in Cancer, and this is also Jupiter in Cancer that's conjunct Venus during this transit, is showing really, and again, because it's in conjuncting this energy, and it's also squaring off this Chiron energy and Aries energy. It's like, again, the child that's born into a family of doctors who wanted to be a musician, and the expectation is, well, you're going to carry on the family lineage. Again, Cancer, this is what we've always done. This is what our family does. We're physicians, we're doctors, we're healers. And then you get this individuated person, the I am, but I want to be a musician, right? And so I want to heal through music. This is also very Pisces, right? Learning North Node. And so how do you resolve that where you have the expectation of, well, everybody in our family has been doctors, or everybody in our family has been farmers, or, in the military, whatever the case may be, the lineage. And so now the parts of us that said, I never really wanted to be a doctor or in the military, but these expectations have been passed on to me. Now I'm having to resolve that. It's like I need to learn to step into my own power, says Mars, in my relationships and really be my authentic self and recognize where I have not been allowed to be powerful. My voice has not allowed to express itself, or I didn't allow myself to express myself because I wanted to be liked and accepted. Libra, because Libra is all about compromise, right? And Libra just wants peace no matter what. And so, and rather than really asserting yourself with your family and saying, no, I don't want to be a doctor, you went ahead and you decided to go into the process of becoming a doctor. And then you go into this 4, 6, 8 year program. And then over time, eventually you start getting sick. You start having these imbalances because you were not really being your authentic self. You were sacrificing, this is also Libra, sacrificing self for the other and their expectations. And so this is what we're breaking free out of. This is what we're starting to really see illuminated, where we have all sacrificed our authentic selves to be accepted by our family, by our friends. And that time period, that consciousness is now ending. Pluto's transforming that and saying, look, actually, what's needed now from you is to really step into doing what you love, your passion. This is Aries, and also it's still trining this Leo energy, especially with the retrograde. And, it's interesting. Mercury will be retrograde during this full moon, but it's going to start beginning its forward movement on August 11th, which is 2 days after this full moon. And it's not going to see its fullness, really. They call it what's in a shadow period. It's not going to get to the point that it was the degree point before it went retrograde until August 24th. So again, we have this whole, time period, especially I would say most of August, to really rethink and reevaluate and really get into your own, because retrogrades is about going inward. So, where have you possibly betrayed yourself because you were wanting to be accepted by friends and family and expected to do things a certain way? And you've known in your heart, Leo, that you've never wanted to do that. So now this full moon is allowing you to release that energy, that need to be liked, that need to be accepted, because the frequency is supporting authenticity. It's actually saying, hey, that may have worked at one point in our consciousness, but now the consciousness is saying, hey, what do you really love to do? What are you impassioned by? Do that. And it will help the other, even if it means breaking some family structures or habits or traditions. And traditions is also ruled by Saturn, right? Which rules Capricorn. So it's going to be willing, and then inviting in, I would say, the imagination, because it's also Pisces, of your family accepting that, of saying, you know what, you have a family of doctors and they may be disappointed, right? And they may try to talk you out of it. But what's really needed, what the cosmology is asking, is no, you need to be a musician, right? If that's your passion, if that's what you came here to be, then that's actually going to help a lot of wounds from the child of really learning to be your authentic self and stand up even to those traditions, those authority figures, those relationship dynamics that were perhaps overpowering, were very dominating. And so this is a healing opportunity, truly. And so, full moons are also really an invitation to do some sort of ritual to tell the mind, higher mind, again, this is also Aquarius, that you are initiating these alchemic changes and you're ready to let these pattern dynamics within your relationships and with yourself, where you sacrificed yourself or overgave to the other in this hope of compromise, when really what's needed is disruption. It needs change. You can see that with the earth, with all the earthquakes that are happening, and on a monumental, huge scale. Things are shifting dynamically and potently and exponentially, as within, so without. So there's a reason that these shakeups are happening, because we've got to shake up these relationship dynamics within self and within the other and for the other. So allowing some sort of ritual to release, and because it's an air, I like to, air's language has to do with communication. So perhaps writing down all the ways that you've given your personal power away. And again, this is not to blame, this is not to shame anyone, but this is just to reveal where we've all done this. Again, we're looking at the collective energy. Aquarius is all of us, all of humanity has done this on some level to some degree. And we're ready to end and transform this relationship pattern with others. And also with the groups, with who we interact with, and with our families. And I guarantee there may be disruption within family dynamics, especially if you decide to step out of, patterns and ancestral lines and ways of even making a living. This is also Venus. How our families always made money is by being doctors, but now, there's no money in being a musician. Were you going to be a deadbeat musician on the street, and dimes? And again, because doctors, you think about, sometimes we choose professions because we want stability and security. And so when you start stepping out and saying, well, I'd rather sacrifice my security to be my authentic self, well, that might disrupt your family who just wants to protect you. you see, and just wants to make sure that you're going to be okay after they transition and move away. They don't want you to be a pauper or insecure, right? But you're pulling security from a different field, because you know that, and again, this is also the opportunity for healing, that you know, Black Moon Lilith, that if you're just your authentic self no matter what, and you express yourself and you are balanced with your gifts and what you want to offer the other, there will be abundance there. There will be support. I will be taken care of, and I will be living the life of my passion and my dreams, not just because I want security, but because I'm here to fulfill my dharma, my gifts. Again, this is Saturn, Neptune. What draws me, what's my passion, what's my desires, is also very much Scorpio, right, which rules desire. So, and Scorpio is also co-ruled by Mars, right? So again, this is how I put the pieces of the puzzle together within my own psyche, and then transmit it out into what, when you teach something, you learn it twice, right? So in a way, I need to learn these things as well, because as I'm stepping into my authentic voice, and being an astrologer, and kind of always been a bit of a hidden astrologer for like 20 years, not wanting to be judged or seen as cuckoo or crazy or out there, and what I can safely say, again, just tuning into the collective energy and just what I'm witnessing with the others, is that no, actually, the community and the groups and organizations want you to be your authentic, unique, quirky self, right? What are your unique gifts? What are your unique periphery that you look through? Because ideally, it's going to help the other step into their gifts, their quirky, unique gifts that they came into Chiron, where their I am presence that perhaps was repressed because they were worried about judgment. But now they're like, no, actually, we're going to judge you if you're not yourself. You see? So it's, the masses and the mob energy is very fickle. And that's also very Aquarius energy. So we're seeing that the script has flipped, right? Actually, we want that quirkiness. We want that individuated, unique expression, not to be special, because that creates a bit of a hierarchy, right? When you call somebody special, that's where that guru energy can come in, and then you have the temptation to look outside of yourself for an authority figure when they're really just a reflection of you, right? So if you see somebody you admire that's telling story wisdoms, and it's really, tapped into the collective energy, and you really respect, again, that's just a version of you that you're meeting within yourself. If you follow that perspective, that's what livzenastrology does. It offers that perspective of unity and consciousness and oneness. And so I'm going to stop screen share and just kind of pull a card now for anybody that's watching this. I was also too in the spirit of learning Pisces, and really anchoring in through daily practice of spiritual rituals and connecting to the divine. I was told to burn a beautiful incense of geranium and rose, which is all about heart, right? Because again, smell and the olfactory system, so important in co-creation. I cannot tell you the power of how smell really does affect your energy field. And I was able to witness that during this, because we're still in this sort of Lion's Gate where we have this alignment with Sirius and the sun. And I was pet sitting for two dogs, right? The two dog star, which is like our binary system. Anyway, so many correspondences. And what they taught me is the female dog, Luna, she was in heat, right? And so Ziggy, the other dog, like her brother, was just coming into his first heat, right? So I was able to see, we talk about Mars and primordial energy, that he just could not stop smelling her. Like her smell activated him, and he became like almost crazy, like this weird feverish, I've never seen. It's just Kundalini life force energy that just wants to create, right? And so, and he was almost, he couldn't eat right. His behavior completely changed because he was being really activated by Luna's smell, right? Her own primordial life force energy. Let's just put it that way. And so after sitting with them for a couple of days and just tuning into their energy, and again, observing the animal nature, which again, as above, so below, I'm watching my animal nature, right? And so I'm just witnessing like, wow, how can I work with this energy? Because it's so intense, right? He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He was just, he's also, I do his astrology too. And he's also Aquarius sun, the dog, Ziggy, and Scorpio moon. And she's Aries. Sun, Scorpio moons. We've got that Scorpio moon intensity, this obsessiveness. Like he was just obsessed with her. He could not get his hands off, his smell, his snout. And so instinctually, as I sat and observed the energy, I thought, he's really activated by her smell. I wonder if putting an essential oil will help regulate and calm his system down. And I've done research and been working with essential oils for years, and I know that lavender oil and frankincense oil are actually good for dogs, right? Just of course, you have to use carrier oil, and it's a process, and not too much, just maybe 1 or 2 drops. But anyway, long story short, I was told and initiated by plant medicine, right, by studying the natural behavior and just understanding the power of the olfactory system. This is also, again, South Node Virgo, how systems work. I was able to apply that and put just a little bit of frankincense on their collars. I put a little bit of lavender on her diaper, because she was also in heat. So, and that worked. That helped. As he was like sniffing on her, like really intensely focused on her, he was inhaling the smell of the lavender and the frankincense, and that really calmed down his system, right? That calmed down his kundalini energy and helped regulate him, helped get him in a more cohesive state, and then he was able to be settled. And so all of us had a better experience. And again, I point that to natural tools, because natural tools, even though we may have been taught differently, that we needed to look outside of this and go to certain, I would say, pharmaceuticals or certain things that we thought would work, when really nature was giving us a very potent medicine right in front of us, right? If we were remembering how to use it. So this is also the invitation too, is remembering possibly our ancestral lineage. We can also tap into knowing the potency of our ancestors and working with plant medicines, right? With herbs, with things of nature from the past. This also has to do with cancer. Cancer has to do with the past and family. So reactivating these natural tools of wellness, like essential oils, the power of smell. Really, I would invite you in to study your own physiology about the olfactory system. There's great resources out there on YouTube about why smell is so important, why tactile, working with crystals is so important, how it holds memory, that everything around you in your environment, the more you can create a stabilizing, coherent environment around you. It really creates that stabilizing, coherent environment within you. There is an expression there and a correspondence there. So, I don't know. I don't know why I told that story. I just wanted to be channeled. It's good for somebody that might be working with their pets or their own kundalini, their own life force energy, and knowing how to regulate it more naturally. I would say essential oils have been paramount to my healing and my perspective and working with my own energy field. So, okay, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pull a card from the Sacred Rebels Oracle deck by Alana Fairchild. And I'll go ahead and put a link on the bottom, because I do like working with the astrology and I do like promoting other people's work. So I'll put a link on how you can purchase this if you're starting to work with divination cards yourself, or want just a different periphery of how to, again, navigate these energies, because there's golden threads of truth woven everywhere if you know how to look at it and look for it and tune into it and attract it. So this is the oracle deck that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to set the intention for anybody now. Oh, and just so you know, during this transmission, I was also working with a smoky quartz, which has to do with working with past energies. It also has to do with grounding. Any darker stones that you work with. This is also black kyanite, keeping you very grounded. I was told to put vetiver oil on my temples, right, to keep me very grounded, because during this next 7-year cycle with Uranus and Gemini, especially the mind, there's going to be a lot of fast moving thoughts happening, and data and energy and information being given to us. So the more that you can ground in, using these grounding crystals and stones and oils can help you integrate the data and energy into a more cohesive way. So just wanted for that to come in as well. So I'm just going to hold these cards hand over heart. Anybody that comes into this field in this now time moment, whenever that is, to receive exactly the message they need to, what needs to be released for this full moon in Aquarius, what needs to be illuminated, brought forth to be alchemized, that we can really step in and know our authentic nature and our authentic selves. So what type of information, data, card, reflection, just words of encouragement can really help us with this energy? Thank you so much, Source. Oh, here we go. Oh, 2 cards came out. Okay. So I'm going to go with that because I just like to go with the instinct. The first card is, what do you feel? And again, it's the number 9. So you can see this too. There's that full moon. There it goes. And there's the sacred geometry around it. And I see too also, she's got an apple in her hand and an orange. And so what she's asking too, what do you feel? 9, we talked about this being a 9 completion year where things are coming back into itself to fold to begin a new cycle, a new cosmic patterning. And it's going to be based on how we feel, not so much how we think, because the moon is about our feelings, it's about our emotional nature. And again, she's delineating what are apples, or what are apples versus oranges. Even though they're both fruit, how can I delineate what they each of these energies feels like? Again, this is very Jupiter and Cancer, right? And if you follow this channel, we talked about what was given to me, the terminology called plasma brailing, which is almost like when you're learning to read in the dark, or learning to read without seeing. So this is like learning to tap into how you feel without being able to see it. You just have to tune into the feeling of it, right? How does this feel in my hand? What is the texture of the apple versus the texture of the orange? Even though I know they're both fruits, I'm learning through this full moon to illuminate, and this is also because of this transmission, what is mine, what is the other's, what is my authentic nature, and how can I share that with the other? What does my true nature feel like? And it may be different. And the moon's going to illuminate and show you. And I even see through sacred geometry. So you might even be, I'm seeing for some of you, maybe channeled writing, where you just allow yourself to automatic write what wants to come through. Maybe do some drawing or pictures, illuminate maybe a sigil. If you've ever worked with sigil energy, it's like you get terabytes of data of information. And so you're like, how am I going to remember all this? Well, you create one symbol for that memory of what you just received. And then you work with that symbol, perhaps putting it on an altar. Because when you work with altar medicine, what it does is it alters your reality. It alters your perspective. It reminds you of that download, that upload that you received when you were in that full moon illumination. It really showed you aspects about yourself. So when you create that altar, again, the remembrance of what you experienced, then you create a sigil or a little symbol that reminds you of that experience. Again, this is all anchoring it into the mind. So this is the first card that wanted to come out. And again, there's completion. 9 is about completion. So you're completing certain cycles of energy and of relationship patterns, how you see yourself, how you value yourself, and what you can give to the collective energy, how you can share your authentic nature, because that's what's being required. We need your authenticity. It's medicine for all of us, because it helps us to be our authentic self when we can witness the other being their authentic self. It's like, well, I can do that too, right? It gives us permission. And again, it's very healing for a lot of us. And this card, I'm going to so this is the number 5, and I'm going to put I guess, sometimes YouTube doesn't like that. It says, follow your own rhythm. This is the number 5. And so we know 5 is Mercury ruled. It rules how we think. It's change in numerology. And you can see too, she's in a state of surrender. Follow your own rhythm. Again, this is pointing back to your authenticity, your own frequency, your own vibration. It's like taking off those layers that we learned, those masks that we learned to wear so that we could feel safe, so that we could feel accepted, so we wouldn't rock the boat within our relationships and just create peace at all cost, even if that cost was your true self. So that is what's being shed. Again, this 9 energy, 9, it's this year we are in the wood snake energy of completion, of shedding your skins. So this, again, I'm using the metaphor, taking off the masks that just maybe you needed at that time to feel safe, to be supported, to be accepted. But that mask has to fall off, because now what's being required is your authentic resonance and vibration. And so anywhere that you're just no longer that being that you were. So for example, I'm going to be transparent. A lot of you on this channel used to know me as my birth name is Carmela, right? And for a lot of years, 25 plus years, I was in the hospitality industry, and I was known as being a bartender on Clearwater Beach, right? So that was my persona. I had to develop certain personality characteristics and trait, because sometimes when you're a bartender, people say the darndest things to you. You almost have to protect yourself. You have to create this persona of, being on stage and having a smile on your face and making cool drinks and entertaining, while also, getting people to know one another. And then you have to, it's like this persona that you create. And anybody that's in hospitality, if you can relate, put in the comments that you almost have to become I don't know, like the stage version of you, right? um, and sometimes people were challenging, and you had to learn to be nice to people that were not so nice. So you had to, again, create these, I call them, well, I used to call them like armor, right? I had to create this armor within me to be protected. Because sometimes when people were under the influence, they say these things at you, or, project their energy. So I had to learn the four agreements, basically: not to take it personally, always do your best, speak clearly and concisely, don't make assumptions. So I feel like I was always in this arena of learning how to work with the other, right? This was my past life. And so that was what Carmela did, right? But then as I started stepping into my new self, which was more astrologically, more talking, counseling through astrology, helping people really get into their more authentic selves, I had to go through that process. And so in that process, I went through this really deep alchemic change where I went through these meditations, and I know maybe I'll write a book about it one day, about how I became from Carmela to Ella. And I had to draw my karma, right? Looking at the name and the language, and realizing from an early age that I was here to change and to alchemize all my karmic relationships. And so I had to drop that persona. I literally had to reinvent myself, rebrand myself, right? From Carmela to Ella, so I can step into this more metaphysical astrologer, right? More speaker, more content creator version of myself. And so I needed to go through this process. And it was a process of how to, like, okay, I can change my name, but how can I step into Ella now and really be that authentic self? And there were still aspects of my personality that I thought I needed, these protection grids that I thought I needed, but that all needed to fall away so I could step into the next version of myself, next career path, next way of being seen, of being understood, as no longer the bartender Carmela of Clearwater Beach. Now I'm the Ella Ivy of astrology and metaphysics, and just own personal journey of gnosis and self-discovery, right? And just sharing that. So again, it's been a process, but it's an invitation to realize that we are all in this process. So if you felt the need to reinvent yourself, even, reinvoke a different name for yourself, again, that's part of the journey too. There's no right or wrong or good and bad. It's just the process of becoming. And so this is an invitation too for this full moon. You might be invited to, drop aspects of yourself, reinvent yourself so you can be your more authentic self. And now I'm going to pull from this chakra deck card that I love, this bag that my mom gave me. It's so cool. And if you know Patty Buck, I love you. Her personality is so reflected in this little bag. So anyway, I'm going to pull a card, or a set of cards, that we need to know for this full moon in Aquarius, what needs to be revealed to us, what's being activated. Ooh, okay. So here we go. First card, red, chakra root, new beginnings. So we're inviting in new beginnings by dropping in old stories. That's what I just heard. So being willing to release the old stories to make room for new beginnings. And again, that has to do with root. So family, any family stories that you heard of that you've been propagating through storytelling. Are you willing to tell a new story about your family even? What does that look like? How does that feel? Again, new beginnings in the root system, family dynamics. Let go and flow. This is also the next part, which is your sacral was orange. So being able to release, we talked about this release energy because it's a full moon. So what are you willing to release to make room for these new beginnings? And again, this has to do with also your lower half of your chakra system, which has to do with root, your creative life force energy, your sense of security. Maybe are you willing to let go of ways that you were felt secure to make room for the unknown, the new version of you that maybe has not made money in this way before? And I'm also thinking, just personal story of me reinventing myself. I am now the first person in my family to be a female entrepreneur, and to step out and again learn to be an entrepreneur, right? So this is new beginning. I had to drop old stories and programs and ways of earning money so that I can step into a new frequency. And it's required a lot of trust and a lot of sacrifice, because, to be your own boss, you just have to develop a mindset and ways of thinking to even make room for that. So this has been, again, a journey. We're probably all on this journey because we're all being asked to step into our authenticity and sovereignty. And so a lot of us in this process have decided to be entrepreneurs and create based on what we love to do. So it's a journey for all of us. Heart is warmth. So we know that the sun is in Leo right now. So it's going out into the sun and receiving those warm sun codes. I'm even seeing for some of us using sunflowers, beautifying the space around you to bring in this sense of warmth. Again, green is heart. So really coming from that space of doing what you love will just naturally bring this authentic nature of you. The more you can, again, I'm thinking a routinely come from your heart space and allow yourself to feel that warmth and that nurturance and that self-love, and then project that out. And that's what's going to create this whole dynamic. And then again, here we go, brilliant. This is the fourth card for this full moon reveal, that there's an inner brilliance. This is also throat chakra, because blue has to do with the throat. You might have brilliant ideas, brilliant new creations that want to come through, brilliant ways of seeing how, oh my gosh, if I can create this can help the other, collective energies. This can really bring a lot of value to humanity. And at the same time, I get to be my authentic, brilliant self and shine my own inner brilliance. Right. So again, these are just ways to work with the energy and to navigate and to see where we are all part of this cosmic change, this evolutionary leap of consciousness, especially between now and Lionsgate 8-8, whatever you consider 8-8 to be. There's just this current of energy that we're all still in. And so it's interesting that this 8-8 energy is completing, right? And then we're going into the 9, and there's the completion of the 9, which we just talked about, this card 9. What do you feel? So we're seeing these patterns of energy showing up to reveal that there's new patterns of seeing and new ways of seeing yourself, new expressions, and the skin, the old versions, the old masks that we used to wear to feel safe, to feel accepted, they're falling away anyway. So really welcome in the change. Do some sort of ritual. I, for me, am going to be, because I've been working on my, looking at my own chart. We have Uranus and Gemini, so I know it's really going to be harnessing the power of the mind. So I've created a sister channel here called Alchemy of the Mind Meditations, where I'm really going to be taking these concepts and putting them into a meditative space using the Silva method. I'm also a Silva method student, and I've been working with meditation practices for years, teaching meditation, practicing meditation. And so I'm really harnessing technology now, teaching myself to work with GarageBand so that I can do the layering effect and I'm using also ChatGPT. I'm using the Architect per Robert Edward Grant to really get a download of the energy that wants to be transmitted. And then I put it into a meditative form. And then I listen to it myself with my own voice box, my own language. And then I feel like I want to give this to the collective, because if I'm going through it on some level, then somebody out there is going through it on some level. So just being able to share the gifts, right? Creating these meditations for myself and then sharing them out to the collective, again, with no expectation other than just to really be my authentic self, because I need these things. And so understanding the power of managing the mind, getting into certain brainwave states, more alpha and theta, that's where we're programmed. Again, I'm learning this from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm learning this from Greg Braden, studying again Robert Edward Grant stuff. These are just some of the way showers and teachers and mentors that I have been following to really learn to harness and manage the mind, our projections, what we're thinking about, how we bring it about, the power of manifestation, how to manifest, the principles that perhaps I've never been taught. No, none of us have been taught, right? So it's a form of re-education, again, Uranus and Gemini. So this is also an offering too, if you want to check out the sister channel, again, Alchemy of the Mind Meditations. So the thought form is, and the commitment is to have this transmission and then to go create a meditation based on what was just transmitted through the energy so that we can really anchor it in and really tap into our own gnosis. So that's an offering I'm going to be giving as well. And so, and yeah, again, if you want your chart read or looked over or just a different periphery, again, this is more of a metaphysical and intuitive perspective. I do look at the transits. I look at my own progress chart every day. So I'm really harnessing in the power of progression. So if you want to do a progressed chart reading session, I just, of course, I'm working now with another astrologer who reached out to me. I'm going to be on his podcast and we're going to be talking about progressions. So again, this is also that flow of working with new community groups and people of like-minded, like-hearted that have common values. And so I'm starting to get into more different groups, organizations, and having different experiences talking astrology. So that's very exciting. So again, really embracing this and leaning into change and transformation and my authentic self. So excited to be sharing astrology. It's not in the dark anymore. I'm not having to feel like I'm going to be burned at the stake or ridiculed for having these perspectives, right? So it's really exciting to be in communities that see you and that support you and can understand your perspective and vision. It's so empowering and beautiful. And that's what we're all moving towards. But you got to be your authentic self. You got to really allow yourself to be seen for who you are so that you can really attract your vibration and your tribe for who they are, right? There's a correspondence there. And again, this is an invitation for this full moon to really get you there and to release and shed all those old masks and layers you no longer need. They're falling away anyway. So you might as well just do a little bit of ritual, set some intention, allow these new beginnings, allow you to be nurtured, support yourself during this process. And so you can support the other when you see them in their process. It's a collaborative experience. So anyway, thank you so much for joining this channel for this transmission. It's a little longer than I wanted, but that's okay. I just wanted to let it come through. And if you liked any of this content or find value or think that any of your friends or family could use this type of perspective or support, I would invite you to share it and maybe subscribe so you can know when more of these notifications of when these transmissions are coming through. And again, I'm getting more deliberate and scheduled, even though I've got a lot of Sagittarius, so it's hard for me to commit sometimes. But I'm really, especially joining other community groups that commit to speaking this way, it's getting easier for me to commit to doing these transmission more consistently. So be on the lookout for consistent transmissions, probably twice a week, popping up here on Tuesdays and Thursdays or the weekend or Fridays. But again, just excited to share this type of energy. And I'm looking forward to connecting with for those of you who love astrology and just want to explore yourself and your own inner systems through this lens, through this language, which tends to be very neutral and all-encompassing and very, very connecting. So anyway, thank you so much for connecting this channel. I love you guys, family, and I'll see you on the next transmission. All right, be well. Bye, family.